Have you ever heard on the news, inflation is up or the market's down, and you just kind of stop and think, how? How do they take millions of different prices and transactions and somehow boil it all down into one single number? Well, today we're going to crack that exact code.
I mean, really, think about that for a second. The price of milk, your rent, a plane ticket, what you pay for streaming services, it's all changing like all the time. So how in the world do economists create one number that's supposed to capture that whole chaotic picture? It honestly sounds a little impossible, doesn't it? But it's actually one of the most powerful tools they have.
And the tool built for this exact mission, the hero of our story today, is the index number. It has one job, and one job only, to measure change over time.
Okay, so here's the official, kind of academic-sounding definition from our source material. Yeah, a statistical measure showing changes in a group of variables. I know, it sounds a little dry, but the idea behind it is actually super simple and pretty clever.
Here's the easiest way to wrap your head around it. An index is just a scorecard. That's it. We pick a starting point, some base year, and we just decide to call its value 100. A nice, clean, even number. From that point on, every change is just measured against that 100. So if the scorecard goes up to 105, that means prices are up 5%. If it dips to 98, they're down 2%. See? It's just a really clear way to track how things are moving from a fixed starting line.
So why do we even need these scorecards? Well, because they basically act as an economic barometer. They give us this amazingly clear snapshot of the entire business climate. And this list just shows how incredibly useful they are. Businesses use them to try and predict what's coming next, and for you and me, they tell us about the purchasing power of our own money. But look at that second point, deflates value series. That's a bit technical, I know, but it's so important. It's just a way of saying these numbers help us see the real change by cutting through the noise of inflation. Like, let's say you got a 5% raise last year. Awesome, right? But what if prices also went up 5%? Did you really get a raise in terms of what you can actually buy? An index helps answer that exact question.
Okay, but here comes the plot twist. Making a good index number, one you can actually rely on, is way, way harder than it sounds. You can't just toss a bunch of prices in a bucket and average them out. It's a real puzzle that statisticians have to put together piece by piece. So to build a solid index, you've got to answer these 5 huge questions. First, what are we even trying to measure here? What stuff should we include? Then you have to ask, was our starting year a normal year, or was it some kind of weird outlier? Is the data we're getting even accurate? And then, maybe the most important question of all, how do you decide which items matter more than others? So how do we solve this puzzle? Let's get into it, because there are basically 2 major approaches to building an index. You've got the simple way, and then you've got the more sophisticated way. So on one hand, you have what's called an unweighted index. This is the simple approach. It treats every single item exactly the same. So a price change for a house is treated with the same importance as a price change for a pack of gum. Then, on the other hand, you have the weighted index. This one tries to be way more realistic by giving more importance or weight to the things we actually spend most of our money on. So let's look at a really simple unweighted example. All you do here is add up the prices. In 2004, the total was 66. In 2005, it was 95. So you do the math, 95 divided by 66 times 100, and you get about 144. That suggests a whopping 44% price increase. But you can probably already see the problem here, can't you? We have no clue if item A is something people buy tons of, or if item D is something nobody ever buys. It treats them all as equals, which just doesn't reflect real life.
And that gets us to the most crucial idea of all, relative importance. This is where weighting comes in to save the day. It's the secret sauce that makes an index number truly useful.
The shopping basket is the perfect analogy for this. Just think about your own budget, right? If your rent goes up by 10%, that's a huge deal. It really hurts. But if the price of chewing gum goes up 10%, you probably wouldn't even notice. A weighted index gets this. It builds a virtual shopping basket that represents what people actually buy, and it gives a lot more weight to the big-ticket items like housing and way less weight to the small stuff.
But get this, even when you decide to use weights, there are still choices to make. These 2 famous methods kind of show the dilemma. On the left, Lasper's index uses a fixed shopping basket from the past. The big plus here is consistency. It's great for comparing over time. But the downside? It can get outdated. I mean, think about it. We didn't spend money on smartphones 20 years ago. Then on the right, you have Pachet's index, which uses a current shopping basket. So it's always relevant to how we live now. The catch? The basket is always changing, which makes it harder to compare year to year. It's this classic trade-off. Do you want consistency or do you want relevance?
Okay, so we've been through the theory, the puzzles, the different methods, but let's bring this all back home. Why does this one number, built with so much thought and care, actually matter in your day-to-day life?
So let's imagine this is the final number our consumer price index spits out, using one of those weighted methods. It's 139.2. Okay, by itself, it's just a number. But what that number represents, that's the whole story. And here it is. This is the payoff. That number, 139.2, is telling us that the exact same shopping basket of stuff that would have cost you a nice, clean $100 back in our starting year now costs you $139.20. That's a 39.2% jump in the cost of living. That's the story of inflation, the story of your money's buying power, all captured in that one powerful little number.
So, now that you've seen how the sausage is made, here's something to think about. If you were going to build your own personal cost of living index, what would get the most weight? For you, is it rent? Is it gas for your car? Maybe it's childcare or your daily coffee habit. It really makes you stop and think about where the money goes and how these incredible numbers try to tell the story of all of our lives.